We do not have any other choices but to protect our citizens. However, we are prepared to negotiate some acceptable outcomes with all the participants of this process. But it is their business. It is not us who refuse talks. It's them.
Russian President Vladimir Putin now claiming Moscow is ready to talk with Ukraine, but his actions suggest otherwise. Christmas Eve marked exactly 10 months since Russia invaded, and Moscow took the occasion to bomb the southern port of Kherson, killing at least 16 people and wounding more than 60. So let's bring in Jamil Jaffer, former associate White House counsel to President George W. Bush and founder of the National Security Institute. Thank you so much for being here. You know, Vladimir Putin has taught the world not to take him at his word. What do we take from these words?
Well, part of the problem here is that Vladimir Putin claims that he's ready to negotiate, Alicia, but the real truth of the matter is that he wants to set preconditions to these negotiations, including keeping the territory that he initially took in this illegal war against Ukraine. Of course, the Ukrainians, having been so successful on the battlefield, are not likely to accept that. So his preconditions aren't really a basis for negotiations.
And, you know, Ukrainian President Zelensky was in Washington this past week, and after he left, Congress passed a $45 billion aid package. Critics, though, have questions. Take a listen.
You know, we have to think about how much support are the American people who are struggling in a variety of ways, willing to give. They are being very charitable, and sure, it's a strategic obligation. It's something, we're very clear about. But, people, I think, reasonably have questions about how much longer this is going to go on without the administration pressing for some kind of diplomatic solution.
What about that point, pushing for a more diplomatic solution and Americans possibly tiring of aid?
Well, I think part of the challenge here is that there is really no diplomatic solution with autocrats like Vladimir Putin. He came in illegally, invaded, took land that wasn't his. He did this back in 2015, too, if you recall, with Crimea, and we let that go. President Obama let that go. We can't allow this type of behavior to continue. It just breeds more behavior. It'll breed China going after Taiwan. It'll breed the North Koreans being more aggressive. We've got to be able to allow the Ukrainians to push back aggressively and ultimately successfully win this conflict and get to a diplomatic resolution that is better than what Vladimir Putin's put on the table right now.
And as we talk here, I want to put something up here. This is all of the U.S. security assistance that has been committed to Ukraine. It's a running list here. I'm not going to go over each one. But when Americans see this and they hear the numbers, the dollars of assistance that's going out there, and they're facing problems heading into 2023 with regard to inflation, what kind of pressure does this put on the Biden administration to strike a balance here?
I think you're exactly right. I think the American people obviously want to make sure that we're holding the Ukrainians accountable for how they're spending this money, how they're using this weaponry that we're providing them. At the same time, I think the main point is this actually is in the U.S.'s strategic interest. This isn't charity. We're not just giving away stuff to the Ukrainians. It is to our benefit to have Europe protected from Russian incursions, to demonstrate to the world that we won't stand for China going after allies in Asia and the like. And so in a lot of ways, this is important strategically for the United States. At the same time, we, of course, have to secure our own border and take care of Americans here at home. There is a balance to be had there, but the right answer is continue to support the Ukrainians and pushing back on Russian aggression in Europe.
It is such a difficult equation as Americans sit in their homes warm and with lights on, a reminder that those in Ukraine do not have those things today. Jamil Jaffer, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.